The truth is, you're as dumb as they come. Stupid, clumsy, slow, sloppy, weak, dirty. If you hadn't attacked them in their sleep, in the middle of the night, like a pedophile, Kaylee would have kicked your fucking ass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, welcome back to J is for Justice. I have some pretty wild breaking news. There has been an article released by the New York Times, and Mike Baker from the New York Times has interviewed Bryan Kohberger's sister. I'm going to read through the article with you guys right now. Let's get into it. This article was released on January 3rd, 2025, and this is the New York Times. And it starts out saying her brother pleaded guilty to the Idaho murders. Now she's ready to talk. Since the arrest of Bryan Kohberger in the murder of 4 college students, a case that captivated the nation, his family has stayed silent. His sister now describes their pain and confusion. And here is Kohberger's sister. This is Melissa Kohberger, but they're calling her Mel Kohberger. When her brother was arrested, Miss Kohberger had been training to start a job as a mental health counselor, but her new employer was so flooded with inquiries that she agreed to abandon the position. The harrowing news had spread across the country in the fall of 2022. 4 college students were found stabbed to death at a house near the University of Idaho campus. Mel Kohberger, who was preparing to start a new job as a mental health therapist in New Jersey, could not help feeling a sense of alarm. Her brother Bryan was living just 15 minutes from the scene of the mysterious killings. Investigators had no suspects, and Bryan was just the type of person who would leave his door unlocked and go out on late-night jogs. "Bryan, you are running outside and the psycho killer is on the loose," she remembers telling him. "Be careful." He thanked her for checking in on him and assured her he'd be safe. In early December that year, her brother returned to their parents' home in Pennsylvania for the holidays. And later that month, Miss Kohberger got a call from her sister Amanda. Law enforcement officers had burst into the house in the middle of the night and placed Mr. Kohberger in handcuffs. She was like, "I'm with the FBI. Bryan's been arrested," Miss Kohberger said. I was like, "For what?" The response? The Idaho murders. For a brief moment, she wondered if it was a prank. Then a sense of nausea took over. Literally overnight, the mystery of who stabbed 4 young people to death in an ordinary neighborhood full of college students gave way to a new question. Why Mr. Kohberger, a reclusive but dedicated PhD student who had been on a path to a career in criminology, may have mounted a silent and brutal attack on 4 students from another university who had no apparent connection to him. The arrest upended the lives of the Kohberger family. Tabloids stationed cameras outside their home, snapping images of Miss Kohberger's father, cleaning up the damage from the police raid. Online sleuths scrutinized the footage of Amanda acting in a 2011 horror film that had also involved stabbings. Miss Kohberger said she was angered by internet posts from people who speculated whether her family had known all along that Mr. Kohberger was the killer. "I have always been a person who has spoken up for what was right," she said. "If I ever had a reason to believe my brother did anything, I would have turned him in." For the past 3 years, the family has kept quiet, avoiding interviews, even as Mr. Kohberger pleaded guilty and accepted 4 life sentences. His parents and siblings wanted to do everything in their power to respect the victims' families during the legal process, Ms. Kohberger said. And even now, she expressed fear that she may say something that could further traumatize them. Her family's challenges, she said several times, cannot compare to what those families have endured. And while the family still does not want to discuss the crime itself, Ms. Kohberger agreed recently to share part of their story, saying she hoped she could bring out the truth about what her family and what it has been like to be dragged into the epicenter of a true crime epic. Family members of high-profile criminals have long struggled to navigate the collateral infamy thrust upon them. The Kohbergers found themselves not just interrogated by detectives, but subject to the scrutiny of an assortment of amateur sleuths, part of a true crime fervor that has brought millions of people together in Facebook groups, Reddit forums, and YouTube channels. When her brother was arrested, Ms. Kohberger had been training to start a job as a mental health counselor, but her new employer was so flooded with inquiries that she agreed to abandon the position. More recently, a book about the case emerged on Amazon with an author listed as Melissa J. Kohberger, suggesting that someone was trying to make money by selling a false version of her story. "It's confusing," she said. "It's painful. It's like being victimized, but not really being a victim." Mr. Kohberger grew up in the Poconos in a home centered on family, with reading of books like Little House on the Prairie and lessons rooted in their mother's Catholic upbringing. Miss Kohberger said she and her brother and sister had been imbued with values of loyalty, self-reliance, and putting the needs of others ahead of their own. Some of her fondest childhood memories were the nights when her parents, Marianne and Michael, ordered takeout food and woke up the children, laying blankets out on the deck. There, they all looked up at the stars, talking about astronomy and the wonders of the world. Friends have described how Mr. Kohberger had been overweight as a teenager and had a standoffish personality, something the family now believes was related to autism. He endured persistent bullying, Miss Kohberger said. He wrote online during those years of having no emotion, little remorse, and feeling as if he was, quote, an organic sack of meat with no self-worth, end quote. Later, he spiraled into heroin addiction when he stole Miss Kohberger's phone and sold it at a mall to buy more drugs. She said her parents alerted the police. Miss Kohberger said they were all worried that he was on a path to an early death, as ultimately happened with one of his friends. But after he went through treatment, she said, Mr. Kohberger seemed to be on a better trajectory. She and her brother both shared an interest in crimes and psychology. She was pursuing a career in mental health therapy. He began discussing a career in policing, going on to study psychology at DeSales University in Eastern Pennsylvania, before getting accepted into a PhD program in criminology at Washington State University. We were also proud of him because he had overcome so much, she said. He was still socially awkward and could be abrasive, she said. They often argued. Still, she said she never saw him be violent. When she once tried to force him out of the house during an argument, he de-escalated the situation by holding back her hands. That lack of a violent history was one of the reasons the family found it so disorienting to hear that Mr. Kohberger was accused of such a barbaric crime. In the days before the raid, the family had gathered for Christmas. Miss Kohberger remembered being thrilled to see her brother back home in Pennsylvania and hugging him tightly. To accommodate the strict diet he now followed, their mother had made him vegan cookies for the holidays. They played TV party games. One night, as Miss Kohberger was cleaning up the kitchen, a sharp edge of foil caused her finger to bleed, and her brother, initially expressing disgust at the sight of blood, helped clean the cut and cover it with a bandage. During those days at home, Miss Kohberger said she recalls him only briefly mentioning the Idaho murders, saying that investigators were still hunting for a killer. Investigators, after going weeks without naming a suspect, had turned to the public in early December and requested help finding a white Hyundai Elantra of a model year between 2011 and 2013 that had been seen circling the victim's house on the night of the killings. Miss Kohberger, knowing that her brother had driven a white Elantra back from school, said she briefly wondered if they were looking for the same model, but then learned it was from a different year, 2015. Unknown to the family, investigators had pinpointed Mr. Kohberger as a suspect within days of his return to Pennsylvania. They were already surveilling the house. In the early hours of December 30th, 2022, while Mr. Kohberger and his parents were alone in the house, police officers burst in with guns drawn, shattering glass and rushing to place him in handcuffs. In court, law enforcement officials said that Mr. Kohberger's DNA was found on a knife sheath that had been left next to two of the victims. Amazon records showed he had purchased the same style of knife. And then there was the white Elantra. Investigators determined that the car near the murder house matched the model he drove. Ms. Kohberger said her mother has been praying daily for the families of the victims. Ms. Kohberger herself has put the names of the victims, Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, and their birthdays into her digital calendar so that she will get reminders about them. During holidays, she said her family has felt grief that Mr. Kohberger could not be with them. But then she said she would think of the victim's family and the pain they must be feeling. The idea is making me so emotional that I can barely speak to you about it, she said in tears. Steve Goncalves, the father of Miss Goncalves, said that he had sympathy for Mr. Kohberger's sisters and the scrutiny they had endured in recent years. But he said he still had lingering questions about what Mr. Kohberger's parents might have known or suspected. As the criminal case proceeded, the Kohberger family was troubled by the intense discussion around it. Mr. Kohberger's emotionless mannerisms, which the family attributed to his autism, became something they treated as evidence of him being a monster. Research has not established any conclusive causal links between autism and violent crime. There were reports that he had interacted with some of the victims on social media or had gone to a restaurant where two of them had worked, but investigators later dismissed those claims. All of the attention, Ms. Kohberger said, made it hard to imagine that her brother could ever get a fair trial. And she could see that the wild speculation surrounding the case seemed hurtful to the families and friends of the students who died. Once an avid true crime fan herself, she now looks back on that with regret. It's human nature to be curious about darker things, she said. That's how we keep ourselves safe. But I think we should try and come together for a true crime culture that is way more protective and empathetic to the families of the victims. The family has tried to support Mr. Kohberger. Since his arrest, they have had regular calls with him, avoiding discussions about the details of the case. Ms. Kohberger said she has kept him posted about life back at home, and he sometimes talks about his latest interests in psychology, the Myers-Briggs personality assessment, and the bicameral mind theory, in which the two sides of ancient human brains operated independently. For his birthday, Mr. Kohberger asked the family to make a cake that he thought his sister Amanda would like. He asked Mel to blow out the candles. Through it all, they have tried to reconcile the son and brother they loved, and still do, with the man depicted by prosecutors and the police. The man who pleaded guilty to killing 4 young people with no apparent motive. When he entered the guilty plea in July, his parents attended, with his mother sobbing in the front row. Weeks later, when he was sentenced, Miss Kohberger had hoped to attend, but she stayed home to care for her father, who had developed heart problems. They watched the hearing together on television. Some of the victims' family members, given a chance to address the court, unloaded their anger at Mr. Kohberger, who sat largely in blank-faced silence. "You're definitely a demon from hell," one family member said through a lawyer. "The truth is, you're as dumb as they come. Stupid, clumsy, slow, sloppy, weak, dirty," said another. The judge said he could not discern any redeeming quality in Mr. Kohberger. Quote, "because his grotesque acts of evil have buried and hidden anything that might have been good or intrinsically human about him." Miss Kohberger is seen here holding a paper heart that she painted, similar to the one she gave her brother at his sentencing. We all remember the heart sitting in front of him at the sentencing that was from her. And she has a paper cut on her finger. What are you guys thinking of this? I think this is wild. Through it all, Mr. Kohberger sat with his hands in his lap, nothing in front of him but a pen and a piece of paper that appeared to have a small drawing on it. On the internet, some of the amateur sleuths watched the proceedings, zoomed in to scrutinize the sketch, speculating that it appeared to be a dark heart. Bryan Kohberger keeps creepy drawing close during sentencing for quadruple killing, a tabloid headline declared. In truth, Miss Kohberger said, it was a heart surrounded by vibrant colors that she herself had drawn for her brother. Even if she could not be there in person, she said, she wanted him to know that he is loved. Wow. I have to admit, the first time reading this was right here with you guys. I'm going to have to replay this and listen to it again myself. But very interesting stuff. All right, now I want to know what you guys think about this. Let me know in the comment section below and let's discuss. Until then, hit like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.